Hello, hello, hello. Well, here we go. Scott Stanfield. I hit unmute and it all of a sudden, all kind of technical difficulties today. Let me make sure my microphone's on the right one and all that stuff's happening. And we are airing today on LinkedIn and YouTube only. Missed the window, running 10 minutes late on the on Facebook. And so all the places that you would normally see me on Facebook, we're not there today. So sorry, Spirituality Gone Wild Network. We'll have to put up some links or posts leading to this episode on the YouTube or LinkedIn where you find me there. This is the Modern Longevitarian. I am Scott Stanfield. Welcome to episode number 90. Yes, number 90. Thank you for watching. Now, today's topic is there are no one size fits all when it comes to your health. Today, we're going to cover three topics if we have the time. We're going to start with diet and dive deep into that, and then exercise or movement, and then sleep. And there's no one size fits all. There isn't. There's no one size fits all to this. But before we get there, let's take care of a little business. You may have heard me talk about how Harvard Business Review posted on Instagram just a couple of weeks ago that 85% of their survey respondents said their general well-being has declined since the start of COVID by 85%. 50% of those said their decline has been in mental health. Wow, where we are with this is crazy, right? We're really learning how big connection is for the human being, for the human species. The more I do this, the longer I do this, more I realize the truth behind the quote by Bruce Lee is that the body follows the mind. If your mental health is suffering, your physical health is suffering. So the longer I do this, the more I move towards teaching and coaching mindset before anything else. Yes, your software does drive your hardware. The way you think determines how you act, how you feel, how you perform, and also your body composition. And I'm taking on new coaching clients as for a new group. And if mindset, lifestyle, and health span coaching is something that you're looking for by someone who has been on the struggle bus, I've lost 40 pounds 2 times and lost less than that more than once. So I've yo-yoed my weight multiple times. And the whole thing is about setting your compass and where you're going to go and keep going in that direction, right? That's really what it's about. So reach out to me. You can send me a DM, or you can go to modernlongevitarian.com/coaching and set up your free discovery call today. Where do you get your protein? How much can you bench press? How much do you weigh? What's your cholesterol, blood pressure? I think that as a society, we are asking the wrong questions. Do you think this, right? Do you think that in a blue zone where they eat 90% plants or more, right? Blue zones are the areas of the world, 5 areas of the world, the original 5, that are ones in Costa Rica. There's a small island in Greece, Sardinia, Italy, Okinawa, Japan, and Loma Linda, California. 90 common diet piece of the puzzle here is 90% plants or more. Do you think that 97-year-old Bob in one of these blue zones is asking the 109-year-old Sally, where is she getting her protein from? That conversation never happens. It just never happens. Yet the first question we ask a vegetarian or vegan is, where do you get your protein? We should be asking a different question. Maybe it is, where do you get your fiber, right? But let's start with diet, because we literally are built from the matter we choose to put in our mouths. And, when I remember being in elementary school and seeing you are what you eat. And we didn't really put those pieces together, but I heard that just the other day, listening to another podcast, and it really rang true to me, right? It's like, would I rather eat almonds or these almond crackers that have cassava flour in them and those type of things have been highly processed? I think I'd rather eat almonds, or maybe pistachios. Would I rather buy grass-fed butter that's salted with salt I don't know the source of, or would I buy unsalted butter right? And then put my salt that I, either real salt or Celtic light gray salt in there or Himalayan pink salt, and then salt the dish or salt whatever I'm having the butter in with salt that I know and trust the source of, right? I'm just looking at it on those type of levels, right? So we are literally built from the things that we consume. We put in here as the building block. So I got this, this little thing here. If you're going to have a say in the construction of your dream home or your dream car, you start when you look at the foundation of this dream home or where your family's going to live, right? Or the chassis, the frame of this car, this dream car. Would you build it from the cheapest materials possible, or would you build it from the most sturdy, money's no object, materials? Of course you would. We know from experience the foundation of a house is by far the most important part of the house. Would you build your house on sand? I think this is in the Bible, right? Sand, gravel, or rock. Build your house on the rock, right? Would you build your dream car on a chassis made of a material that would fold up like a piece of wet cardboard just going around a corner? No, right? You want that baby to hug the corners, handle the horsepower, right? Without folding up, right? And if the greasy side, the oily side decides to see the light of day, you need that chassis and that roll cage and those A arms and all those things to, A frames, all that stuff to protect you, right? And from damage. You need your house to protect you from the storms and the earthquakes and the wind and the snow and the heat and all of those things. You need insulation, you need those things. So if you're looking at your body, if you're giving your body the building blocks, right, that it needs to be your best self, are you going to feed it the fuel and the building blocks and all those things that it needs to grow into that? Or are you going to give it the cheapest materials possible? That's your choice. All right. This leads me to diet dogma. I just heard this the other day and I thought this was really cool because which diet is best for you? Vegan or carnivore? Plant-based or paleo? High carb or low carb? Intermittent fasting or feast? Well, let me ask you this question. Does your diet ideology match your diet biology? What you believe in your heart of hearts? I mean, think about this. What if you think in your heart of hearts that eating a vegan diet is saving the planet? Or a 100% raw vegan diet, right? And you're juicing, you're doing all these things, right? And you're saving the planet, but yet your biology doesn't match up with that diet. What are you going to do, right? Does your diet ideology match your diet biology, right? Miriam, thank you very much for watching on LinkedIn. Well put. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. If anybody's got any questions or comments, you can put them in, right? And we'll get to them, right? As we go through the show. But thanks for watching. So, what if you see the latest 53-year-old lifting weights? He's on Instagram, right? He's 53 years old, he or she, right? They're cut, low body fat percentage, right? With muscles galore, and they're eating a 100% carnivore diet. And you say, yep, that's for me. I want to look that way. So I got to eat that way. I got to exercise that way. But your biology rejects that style of eating, right? Whether you like it or not, you're performing I just want to back up. I want to really, really lay this down. I want you to hear this. Whether you like this or not, you are, I am, you are, everybody is that wants to optimize their health, their wellness, their nutrition, their health span, their lifespan, their longevity, however you want to frame this, right? You are doing an experiment of one. I am doing an experiment of one. And I said this on a previous show. One of my coaching clients sent me a text message and said, what's your thoughts on how much raw versus cooked vegetables I should be eating? And my answer was, I can't give you an answer. I can help you find your answer, but what I believe that works for me is not anything that I would prescribe for you. Okay. And so the thing is that if you know, like I don't perform well on a vegan diet, 100% vegan diet. I love being in keto. I love intermittent fasting, right? I love having some protein in my diet, right? Some animal protein in my diet. I feel the best when I have that. Some days, on a rare occasion, once every 6 months or so, right? 3 months or 6 months, if I will, there's things I range between these things. So all these diets are tools, right? Tools to use. So, like for instance, you can't see it, but I can pull it out right here. It's on the very bottom, so I can't pull it out. But this bottom book right here, The Longevity Diet by Victor Longo, PhD, runs the Center of Longevity at the University of Southern California, wrote a book called The Longevity Diet. And he's from Italy, so the diet of Sardinians is really something he studied, one of the blue zones, right? He studied all the blue zones. But my point is this: he had created a fasting mimicking diet, 100% plant based, 800 calories, 5 days, right? Okay, that's a tool. A fasting mimicking diet is a tool. Keto is a tool. Being metabolically flexible is a tool. A keto lifestyle or living a low carb lifestyle or getting into ketosis is not really a diet. You can do that with diet, but you also can do that with fasting. It's part of your metabolic way of burning a fuel. Our body can burn two fuels. Look at that. Nature, God, the universe, whoever you wanted to look up as a higher power, Mother Nature, right? Created our body to be able to burn two different fuels, right? So if you eliminate carbohydrates, right, from your diet, whether it be by fasting or eating a low carb, moderate protein, high healthy fat diet, your body's going to have to flip over at some point to survive into ketosis and start converting fat into ketones. Well, that's why it's called the ketogenic diet, right? There's my microphone. I just hit it right here, right? But my point being is this, right? All these things are tools, right? I want to be able to burn both fuels. Like your car, if you buy a relatively new car, it has a flex fuel engine in it. It burns different, burns 85, 15% ethanol, but it can burn 100% petroleum based, right? It can burn both, right? The computer recognizes it, makes the adjustments it needs on internally in the engine, the jets and the injectors and and the air intake and all that type of stuff, right? Makes all the changes that it needs, recognizing what type of fuel it is, right? So it optimizes that. Your body does the same thing, right? Your body does the exact same thing. So here's the thing. This is where we should agree, right? And stop fighting between whether we should be vegan or paleo or keto or carnivore, right? We should agree on these things. And then all those people that have in those dogma, in those camps, should join forces and go, we're the ones eating healthy, okay, eating for health, and then fight against the 77% of the United States. They're eating a standard American diet, or even the SSAD, the super sad, which is the Southern version of the American diet, which is what I grew up on, right? And right, and we can get into all that stuff back in the 80s when I was in high school, how I ate hamburgers and the hamburger french fry line every day, except when they had pizza in the other line, right? There was nobody governing my diet, right? And helping me with that because I was a teenager in high school and that was the option, right? This is what we should agree on. Eat clean food to lower toxins. Take it easy on your liver, guys. If you're drinking alcohol and you're eating high toxic foods with glyphosate and estrogens in it and all those type of things, you're just burying your liver and you're like going, hey, I'll let up never, right? So take it easy on your liver and your detox pathways. All right. Provide the very best building blocks for your body to use and build the best you possible. So non-GMO. Number one, no genetically modified foods, right? So look for the non-GMO logo that is on the products, right? And there's sometimes for branding purposes, They may not be the colorful blue, white, red color. It may just be in all black and say the non-GMO project. Like pistachios that I love to buy, it says non-GMO on it, but it's all black, right? So you have to like read that, look for that logo or that it says non-GMO. I also go for gluten-free myself personally, and that's why this is a one, this is not a one size fits all, right? This is what? This is a n equals one. We're all doing our own experiment, right? We have our own microbiota, our own ecosystem that's passed down from generation to generation that we know that we're losing a third of the microbiome diversity every time that every new generation, right? So all those things are happening. We're not feeding our guts the right way, right? 97, according to Dr. Will B, who wrote Fiber Fueled, 97% of Americans are fiber deficient, even with lower standards set by the US government, right? So we're not getting enough fiber. Maybe we should be asking instead, where do you get your protein? Where do you get your fiber? Or what's your plant diversity score? Right? Right. Right. And so maybe sometime ask me where I get my protein. I'd be like, well, what's your plant diversity score? Be like, what? I didn't even know that was an indicator, right? Just to throw it back at them. Right. Another we'll get when we get to exercise. The weirdest question ever is what do you bench press? Like, where did the bench press become the benchmark? No pun intended, for how strong you are, right? You should be asking, what do you deadlift, right? Or what's your VO2 max, or what those type of things, or you're a nose breather, right? And just ask another random question, right? Anyway, a non-GMO. That's the first thing that you need to pay attention to on everything that you are going to put in your body for it to build a new you. Number two, organic, right? I know that some people are going to say, gosh, if I'm buying non-GMO and organic, I can't afford that. Well, I've told myself and told my family, this is the price of real food, right? All the other stuff is not real food. It's Frankenfoods. It's right. It's not, I can't, now that I know what happens with genetically modified foods, I can't, in good conscience feed that to my me first, my wife, my 19-year-old son, my 13-year-old daughter. I can't do that. Now I don't have control over my other parts of my family that don't live in this house, what they eat. But if I go to the grocery store, I buy the right things, right? I buy those things. And so that they have no choice, right? When they go out on their own, then they can do their own thing. But if we have hopefully instilled in them the right way to eat. So that's what real food costs, right? So just, I don't know, get over it, move forward, right? And do that. Change your mindset. That's why mindset's so important. Wild caught, wild caught seafood. You don't want farm raised seafood, especially like farm raised salmon, right? It's got color added. If you look into what food coloring is made from, you'll know that you don't want to be eating that either. It's made from petroleum products, right? So if you want to be eating petroleum, go right ahead. But that's what color added did. Also, the water in those ponds that they raise the salmon in, if they're doing that now, if it's like netted in the waters of Scotland and it's Scottish salmon or something like that, and the water's flowing through the nets and that stuff, and it's no color added, right? Then that would be a way to go, right? Would do that, but primarily wild caught. When it comes to land dwelling animals, I would say two things. First off, humanely raised, right, and humanely treated. That means pasture raised. That means grass fed, if that's what they normally eat or their natural diet, and those type of things. Now, I know I've listened to Rich Roll and his podcast, and he's a vegan, right? And he even has his own diet plan that you can join and those type of things, right? And you can have groceries delivered based off the thousands of recipes that you can modify and adjust and talk to the nutritionist and those type of things, right? It talks about how much more water and land is used to humanely pasture raise animals versus the feedlots. And so even though it may be, it's, and so some in the, and not talking about Rich Roll, but some people in the vegan camp or the vegetarian camp that don't eat meats are saying that pasture raised humanely, no antibiotics, hormones, steroids, and the like, is just window dressing. Is actually worse for the planet, right? And it's right. I think that what's worse for the planet is maybe the fact that we have like 7 billion people on it, when when other people, when just a couple hundred years ago we had a couple billion people, right? So maybe those types of things are happening, right? So humanely raised, no antibiotics ever, no hormones ever, no steroids ever, and all of those type of things. And then the third thing, I mean, the not third thing, but last one is eat foods as close to their natural state as possible. Meaning like that almond cracker, scenario, right? Cauliflower versus rice cauliflower. Rice cauliflower is probably the stalk mostly, right? It's not the florets because you can make more money by selling the florets if they're just cut off of that. So you're eating mostly the stalk unless you're making it yourself. But what happens is that if you go back to Forks Over Knives or the China study, they talk about how foods that like for instance, if you're eating a cauliflower and it's closest to its original state, where if you take and saute or steam or bake or however you want to roast cauliflower, right, and you're having to chew it up, you're gonna have bigger pieces that go in than if you start with the rice, right? So you're gonna come if you eat rice, you get more calories in there, and then that versus if you fill your stomach up, it gets to the point to where it says full, right? Because there's these levels in there. So you actually eat less food, which goes into the Japanese, Okinawan practice of eating to 80% full, right? So you would eat less, but fill up your tank more because it takes up more space, right? Because bigger chunks are going in there. So you could have peanuts instead of peanut butter or cashews instead of cashew butter, right? So start thinking about how things are processed, right? And it condensing it down to take up less space, and that's how you're getting more calories in, right? And so I'm not telling you eat more often because you're eating less calories, because I'm an avid 9-year veteran of intermittent fasting, right? So I won't eat until normally around 2 o'clock. Now I'd move that around. Dave Asprey's new book, Fast This Way, says don't fast the same way every day, and don't start out with 24 hours worth of fasting. You have to work up to these things. Your body has to, and the mitochondria has to change. Your ghrelin, has to be reprogrammed with ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, and all those type of things have to really, be reprogrammed and all that, those type of things, right? So first of all, and so this is number one is eat clean foods, and I listed all those things out. Number two, find where you are and test diets that work for you and find what works for you. Now, it's super important because this is where you start breaking away from ideology and actually just focusing on the biology of this, right? And so this is really what's important. And you could do, HRV testing, which is heart rate variability testing, right? We can get into that on another show and have an expert come on that. But I have a heart rate monitor, and with an app on my phone, I can test my heart rate variability. You can get the same thing. I bought that, I downloaded the app, right? I also, bought the Wahoo chest strap, ability to do heart rate variability monitoring, heart rate monitor, from Amazon. You can buy that, right? And you can do that and test your heart rate. Basically, if there are varying time times between each beat, means you're in parasympathetic, which means that you're not stressed, right? And you are, if you're well rested and all those type of things, you're healthy and all that type of stuff, right? So if you are stressed, then there are very consistent times between your beats, and you're sympathetic, you're stressed, you're living in this fight or flight scenario, right? And so that could be from lack of sleep, that could be from your thinking, that could be whatever stress has going on. You're worried about whatever, right? You fill in the blank, right? Those type of things. But get back to your biology, right? Forget what your parents, and maybe if you're young enough, what even your grandparents may have taught you. My grandparents were not the healthiest by any means. And so I look back to what I saw my great grandmothers. I had two great grandmothers that were around even into one was into my late 20s. Um, she passed away on 9/11, right? And so 9/11 was, I was 28, maybe 29. Yeah, I was 29 years old. No, I was, yeah, 29 when my great grandmother on my mother's side passed away. I saw that was Grandma Kimball, Grandma Mac. I saw her eating liverwurst, right? When's the last time you like peel back some liverwurst, right? When's the last time I peeled back liverwurst? She lived into her she was 89, I think, Grandma Mac, when she passed away. And that was my dad's grandmother, right? And she babysat us, and she only thing that she struggled with was, I mean, what not only thing, but she had a loss of hearing, but she ate liverwurst. I remember like how grossed out I was by that. So how important and what vitamins come from liver, right? So maybe we should be eating like 2 or 3 generations before us was eating, because that was the ancestral diet that was passed down from our ancestors that actually, if you're in the US, right, that were immigrants and came over from the old country. So maybe you even need to look into your ancestry. I know Dr. Ken Berry had DNA tests done, and his test showed that he had more Cro-Magnon DNA than 97% of the population, and so he went on a carnivore diet and it helped him, right? So it's individual. See how individual this is. Like, let's talk about this, right? I've said this before and I'll say it again. I was born in 1972, C-section, emergency C-section. My mom and I were both 5 minutes away from passing away because her pelvis bones did not separate. Okay. I don't know what kind of psychology messing up that is, but basically, I don't know if I got the proper download of the microbiome, which was, I think, at that time considered junk DNA, right? Today, if there was going to be a C-section, and from what I understand, they put a sponge in a vaginal canal to gather up this microbiome download that's coming to the baby through the vaginal canal, and they wipe the baby down with it so they get it. Now, I was breastfed. I probably got some that way, but the first sinus infection I ever had that gave me a headache, my mom told me that I was too young to have a headache. So chronic sinus infections. And if you look into the connection between your gut microbiome and your mucus linings, right, and the microbiome there and the protective mechanisms of that, why do you think that I was having sinus infections at such a young age and chronically up until I figured some of these things out over the last 5 years, right? Why do you think, right? It's because I had to start somewhere with what I had, right? And so with epigenetic download or pass from generation to generation, right? If you look at the epigenetic scarring from one generation to the next and all those things that happen, right? Is that so your microbiota may just start to thrive if you start eating the right way for you, right? Because, your microbiome, we hear about microbiome, we hear about most people taking probiotics for a long time. Now we're starting to hear about prebiotics, but there's also there's pre, there's pre, there are pro, and then there are postbiotics, with what the microbiome creates. But there's also a microbiota, which is the whole ecosystem that is balanced with, there's viruses and live in our gut. There is bacteria, right? Hopefully the good bacteria. And you want this all balanced the right way. And then there are parasites in there. There's other yeast in there. And so like if people have like I had, which was a Candida albicans yeast overgrowth, right? That was out of balance. You want to get this ecosystem in balance. To do that, that's probably one of the very first steps, is to make sure that has happened. There's companies I've seen like Viome that you actually can send them stool samples and they'll tell you what bacteria you have in your gut and what food you should be eating, right? And so it's really about, building up this diversity of microbiome or good bacteria by having plant diversity and having more fiber, because the fiber is what the bacteria eats and that's what helps them thrive. So you want to feed the bacteria, which then helps you consume the food that you need to live your best self. And so, what questions should we be asking instead of where do you get your protein, right? Let's see what comes to mind, right? So, where do you get your fiber? What is your plant diversity, right? Those type of things. How much do you weigh? Probably we should be asking, what's your body fat percentage? Because even, there's been times that I've had so much, not so much, but enough muscle built on my frame that even I was at 24 on the BMI scale, where 25 or above, 26 is considered overweight, and I was at probably a 10% body fat. So BMI in the modern day doesn't work either if you actually lift weights for that, right? So that really doesn't work. So just be careful, right? That so we don't even own a scale. I have a pair of body fat calibers that we have. I also just pay attention to how I look in the mirror, right? How my clothes fit, right? What size clothes did I wear in my prime in high school, right? I wore 32 pants. Do pant sizes, are they still the same as they were? back 30 years ago when I was in high school in 1990, going on 31 years now, those type of things. Let's talk about, if there's any questions about diet, go ahead and put them in right now. I'm going to move on to exercise, and I'm going to riff on that. I typed up everything I was going to talk about. I probably could post it as a blog post, a little short blog post about that. But I'm just going to riff right now on the concept of exercise. And we ask, like, for instance, we ask, what do you bench press, right? When we should be asking maybe, what do you deadlift? And so I was just the other day, I ran across this group of young girls. They're Division 1A lacrosse players. And I made a joke. I'm like, is lacrosse even a sport? And I joked around. I was like, hey, I grew up racing go-karts, and that's not, and racing a lot of times is not considered a sport. And and so we joked around. She's like, how much do you bench press? I'm like, I don't bench press. I haven't bench pressed in years. I haven't been a member of a gym in a long time. I work out at home. Do a lot of push-ups though. You want to see who can do the most? And we didn't do a competition, but we did joke around about that, right? But are push-ups even a measure of your overall strength and health? I think there may be even a better, because if you're laying flat on the bench, and I notice people even like bowing their back up and doing these different things for different posture in terms of doing bench presses these days. This is what I see on the gram and different places on different sites I go to. But my point being is this: is that a push up is really like a plank. You're in a plank position, right? That's moving up and down. And so what happens is, what are all the benefits of planking, right? That's why people do plank challenges, and there's world records on planks, and there's world records on bench presses too. But the bench press is not the benchmark, no pun intended, right? Maybe there is, right? On our overall health, right? Our overall strength. I I mean, I think our back is probably more important. Our low back strength, our durability, our functionality, um, you know, um, you know, what we can lift and move and do those type of things in the real world is more important than, bench press. That's very, isolated move, right? With that. Um, but here's the thing: if you don't like lifting weights, or you're like me, you've chosen not to go to a gym for probably 20 years. I did go to, when I was traveling and staying in hotels, I would go to hotel gyms, right? And do that and work out there. But I still only, you know, use the weights that I didn't use all the weights in the way that didn't go back to traditional bodybuilding, those type of things. But I was able to move weights in different ways, and I got a little bit bigger and different, and those type of things. But since I stopped doing that, I've scaled down, right? I think that my body type's more of a Bruce Lee than it is an Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't have super big, broad shoulders. I don't have that type of body build. And so I just optimize what I have. So I love doing body weights. I love swinging kettlebells. I love doing, those type of dynamic, complex moves that are more for functionality, durability. And I do need to work on my cardio some, right? I think God gave me a 4-cylinder when I really want, like this rip roaring turbocharged V12 and a Formula One, to be able to sprint, or, if I need a diesel to be able to drive across the country. I really would love to be able to do those things. But I have, over the last 3 summers, right, randomly just said, today I'm going to do, an 11-mile hike. You think that's a half marathon with no training, just like I'm going to go do it. And for the first 2, no problems. The third one, I got blood blisters on my feet because I didn't have any socks on that day. My feet got really sweaty, and it was in the sun. I got a little sunburnt. It was out next to the Jordanelle Reservoir. And so made some mistakes with that and struggled with the recovery of the blood blisters on the balls of my feet, right? Those are lessons learned. And I learned that at 48 years old, right? To not do that. But what happened is I was using my awesome toes and spreading my toes out, right? So what happened was, it actually makes when your toes are like this, right? Your shoe size is smaller than when you actually start straightening out your big toe, right? Your big toe gets longer, because it's straighter, is longer, right? So my shoes didn't fit the right way. So I went without socks thinking that was the right thing to do. And it was actually the wrong thing to do. Right. So I struggle with that. And so now because I wasn't able to hike as much during the summer as I normally would, my cardio is not as where it was. And so I've kind of lost that. So I've been working on some of the things through, you know, not doctor, but Patrick McKeon's book, Oxygen Advantage, right? Using my, then where is it? Oh, it's over there. My Oxygen Trainer by Boss Rutan. I've been using that because breathing through a mask sucks too, right? It's really hard. You're sucking through this restrictive thing. So I've been working on building those muscles and doing that type of things. But here's the thing: you can do yoga, you can do biking, you can do endurance running. You got to just basically find what type of workout that you love, and you'll be willing to do again tomorrow, and one that you can recover from, and do it in doses that you can recover from as well, right? It's funny, my son asked me the other day because we did P90X and loved, Tony Horton, and he was 45 when he did the original, 45, 46 years old when he did the original P90X, right? It was pretty big, right? You look at him now that I think he's in his 60s now. Um, and he's smaller now than what he was. He's still cut, right? And you can see this on Instagram, see how, he's doing. He's still the pull-up boy, still does a bunch of pull-ups and those type of things. But my son asked me, he's like, Dad, why don't you look like Tony Horton did when did P90X? I'm like, well, I don't do those type of exercises. I do more complex moves. I don't do isolation moves like bodybuilding type things. I don't do concentration curls. I do, reverse rows where I'm, pulling this way. So I work my biceps, but I'm not actually doing isolation things, trying to make my bicep bigger. I'm trying to get, I'm using multiple joints at one time, to do these complex moves to consolidate my exercises into the shortest amount of time as possible. So my exercise is between 25 and 35 minutes. And so I'm not going from deadlifts to back squats, to front squats, to, leg extensions, to hamstring curls, to a calf machine, to really, like do a bodybuilder's type workout, where I'll do like, split squats holding a, 55 or 71 pound, you know, um, kettlebell, right? So, I mean, like if I'm holding a 71 pound kettlebell on one side, I'm really only adding 142 pounds to this. Where like when I was in my 20s, I was squatting 415 pounds, right? So I'm not trying to, build quad size and build leg size and those type of things. I'm trying to build horsepower to weight ratio, using another racing term, right? How can I build strength and stay the same weight, right? I'm doing those type of things. And a lot of that's body weight, doing more reps, doing those things, using my blood flow restriction bands to optimize like, vessel, blood vessel compliance, right? And to trick my body into releasing more growth hormone and things like that without having to tear muscle fiber and do lift heavy weights and do those things. So and say, this is a thing. This is another reason why there's a one size fits all, because there's so many different things. Somebody may be designed like Rich Roll or my friend, Dave Panarelli, that love doing triathlons and do those type of things. They just love doing those type of things, right? And other people are, wired to do martial arts, and some people are, wired to lift heavy weights, and some people are wired to do CrossFit, and some people like want to do body weight exercises. Some people want to do yoga. Some people just want to stretch. Some people just want to sit on the couch, which we don't want to talk about them. But and some people just move through enough throughout the day, like in the blue zones, that they don't actually have to do any supplemental exercise to make up for the lack of movement throughout the day. So those are the things about exercise, is that I start asking the right questions, right? About wrapped around exercise. Can I touch my toes? Has my flexibility decreased over the years as I get older, right? Those type of things. And all of this really is dependent on sleep. Now let's transition to sleep. And um, because, this is the thing that is really interesting, right? We're getting programmed that getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning is the only way to be successful in the world, right? Is the only way to be successful. There's books written on this. There are coaches who, one of my coaching clients says that his previous coach told him he had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So he's programmed to get up that early. I'm like, and I tell him, no, get up when you're ready. Go to sleep, find your sleep type, your sleep chronotype, and optimize your sleep based off your natural rhythms. Jocko Willink, he posts on Instagram almost every day that he gets up at 4:32 in the morning. Jocko, love it. That's great for you. But what happens is those people who are telling you that are really cutting out the majority of the population. Dr. Michael Bruce, PhD, he's known as a sleep doctor. He developed these 4 sleep chronotypes. They are the lion. I need to take a sip of my coffee here. My throat's getting a little dry. I've been talking nonstop, 42 minutes and 3 seconds. By the way, my coffee this morning has got a little Gaia turmeric, little black pepper in there. This their mind blend that our dear friend Liz gave me for Christmas. Put that in there. I put some Vietnamese cinnamon in there, curb the hunger, right? I went to bed a little bit late last night. My alarm went off a little early. I didn't optimize my sleep best as possible. So I know that my hunger hormone is going to turn on earlier than normal. So I'm trying to get past that, right? So tools, all about tools, right? And I blended a little butter in there. No MCT oil, but a little bit of butter because I want my coffee to taste good this morning. That's what I wanted, right? So my next one, I'll probably just do a green tea and matcha green tea and go with the grittiness of that, right? And see how that turns out, right? Now, where was I? Somebody remind me where I was, what I was talking about. All right, talking about sleep. Oh, Dr. Michael Bruce, PhD, the sleep doctor, 4 chronotypes. Number 1, the early bird, he calls it the lion. And he took all of these and paired them up with an animal that has the same sleep type. A lion gets their first kill before dawn. So if you are getting your first kill before dawn, you're sending your emails before dawn, you're up, you're meditating, whatever you're doing before dawn, then you're a lion, you're an early bird. Then go deep on that book that says you got to get up at 5 a.m. because it's the blueprint that you need. Start following Jocko Willink on Instagram and buy all his books and do all his stuff and listen to his podcast and do his thing because he's going to tell you, that exactly what you need to do to live that life. So find a model and model somebody or hero. So whatever you want, right? And model the person that has the same sleep type that you have, right? So, the next one would be bears. And 55% of the population are bears. And they get up with the sun and they go to bed with the sun. And they 55% of the population. That's why we have like this 9 to 5 or 8 to, your 9 to, work, most people work during that time because the bears set all the schedules, right? With that. And then there are people who don't sleep that much. That is the dolphins, right? They don't have a really one set time they sleep and things. Could be the modern day insomniac, those type of stuffs, those type of sleepers. And then the wolf. Wolf is the night owl, right? And that's me, right? So when I see that you got to get up 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm like going, no, that doesn't work for me, right? And I'm not ever going to tell anybody to try to fit in a different chronotype version of you, right? For instance, I mentioned earlier intermittent fasting versus feast, feast, feast. Like for instance, my dear friend Bob Wholesale, 78 years old. He's intermittent fasting. He's keto. Did this on his own. I didn't coach him on this. We didn't talk for a bit because I was in California and that type of stuff and busy working. And we reconnected and he intermittent fasts. But his intermittent fasting schedule is completely opposite of mine because he is a lion and I am a wolf. Okay. Meaning that when do wolves eat? They eat later at night, right? They eat later. And when do lions eat? They get their first kill before the sun comes up. So I help Bob cook a men's breakfast, right? And it used to be that was my one breakfast a month that I would eat. But I'm now so in tune with my sleep type and knowing when I eat in those things. I go over there. I'm a little late because it's getting up early for me, but I help him cook the breakfast. I cook the flank steak on the grill, right? And then what happens is that I help him. We let the meat rest. We slice the meat. We put everything on the table, and he eats the keto things on there, right? I don't eat anything. I just sit and coffee and talk, and and I'm able to talk more because they're all eating, right? So I get to get my talk on, right? And they ask me questions sometimes about sleep and things like that, right? Which we're talking about right now, right? And so it's super important, right? Um, to understand that your sleep type really drives all these other things we just talked about, right? But sleep is not as sexy as diet and exercise. So I had to put that last, right? So if I put that first, you may have not watched this, right? So so this is the thing. Find your sleep type. And Michael Bruce has his website. It's the powerofwinquiz.com. and I'm sending you there, right? Because this is so important. The powerofwhenquiz.com takes a couple minutes, answer all these questions. And at the end, it's going to tell you what sleep type you are. It's going to give you a video that tells you the best times to have coffee, the best times for your sleep type, the best time to have coffee, the best time to exercise for performance. All sleep types, the best time to work out to lose weight is within the first 30 minutes of waking up. The best time to eat, the best time to make love, the best times to do almost everything in your life. And then he's going to lead you and try to get you to buy his book, which is called The Power of When, right? And that's it. But I'm just like, you can get this 12, 15-minute video telling you all this stuff about your specific sleep type. So what happens is that Bob stops eating at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I start eating at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And so it's based off your sleep type. Like I do better at exercising 6:30 in the afternoon, but you know, if I wanted to burn more fat and do or cut more weight off, right? Get my body fat percentage lower. I know I got to work out within the first 30 minutes of waking up. But you know what I do in the first 30 minutes of waking up? Start working on this show, right? Start working on this. And so I can really deliver the best show that I possibly can. And so that's what I do. I'm prepping for shows in the morning and I'm not doing that. So what I do is my morning routine a lot of times starts after the show is over and I do meditation, breathing exercises, exercise, write in my journal, do those type of things, right? And do that stuff. And that's how it goes. But yeah, that's just because this live show just kind of is like important to me. It's on my mind and I put it there and do that. So here we are. It's there's no one size fits all to your or solution to your health. There's just not. Right? We all have individual microbiomes because we have all taken different antibiotics, right? We all have different downloads from our moms for different reasons, right? We've been fed different diets growing up. We all have different ideas and programming around what a good healthy diet is. And trust me, I talk to a lot of people when they say eating healthy, there's no set thing for what eating healthy is, right? Because it's just crazy what people think eating healthy is, right? Um, and it is so hard to define because so many people believe different things about what eating healthy is. It's crazy. It's really crazy when you start looking at that. Exercise, there's no one size fits all. You got to find what you're going to love doing today and love doing tomorrow. The best exercise program is one you'll keep doing, right? And so just find what works for you. And you're like, so you're like, oh, I saw this workout. I want to try it and do that. That may be great to really educate yourself on a different way of moving or those type of things, right? But like I'm looking into getting certified in natural movement, and so what does that look like, right? And Scott hasn't really done a lot of natural movement, but I think that's kind of the future of where we're going. And when you look at, when people say, "Oh, getting down on the floor is easier than getting up," right? We've heard that our entire life. Older people saying how difficult it is up off the floor. Well, what if we train for getting them up off the floor? I do, right? I turn 49 next month, and I train actually getting up off the floor. It's part of my leg workout because what is this saying? I have this Chinese doctor, acupuncturist that I go to, and he said, gates that are closed, only hinges that are closed rust, right? So we got to work that part. When we were kids, we had no problem getting up off the floor. But when do we stop getting on the floor, right? We stop getting on floors and playing with it when our kids grow up and they're no longer on the floor doing those type of things. So those joints, those muscles get weak, those joints get rusty, those type of things. And because we're abusing our bodies and feeding it things that cause arthritis or, allow chronic disease to creep in, those type of things, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. It's just so poor how we abuse our bodies and expect them to keep performing. The good news is we're very resilient, and it takes a very, very short time if you switch your diet into the right place, using them as tools. Vegan could be a tool to detox, right? We talked about the fasting mimicking diet. Walking is so important. That's where 10,000 steps come in, right? You look at how people are even using walking. There's studies that show that walking burn more fat than running, right? So if you think you need to go lose weight and go out and run, you're going to actually put your body under stress. Actually, because you're overweight, even your joints even under more impact and more stress than you ever would imagine. Walking also doesn't release cortisol, and there is a insulin cortisol correlation that And as long as the insulin is spiked, as long as your insulin is spiked, the signal to your body is this, right? Is to store fat, right? And so walking does not spike insulin. And therefore your body will burn more fat and get into a fat burning mode by doing that. John Jensen. All right. Let's see here. Great perspective. Great show, Scott. Great perspective. I've always felt everyone is different when it comes to healthy living. But I really got interested in doing experiments with my lifestyle after reading Tim Ferriss's book, Tools of Titans. Thanks. Right here. Tools of Titans, right there. 4-hour work week, right up there as well. So huge Tim Ferriss fan. I think that's the reason why I got into podcasting, John. And I, first of all, I want to say thanks for the, not first of all, but thanks for the kind words. Here's the thing. It's we all need our Roger Bannister, and Tim Ferriss for a lot of us is Roger Bannister. He broke the 4-minute mile in this experiment as being a human guinea pig and doing that. And it really kind of like, it's same for me, inspired me to start testing even more and finding what works for me. Right. Versus versus just like going, this is where I need to go. And I've learned about the Wim Hof method from listening to the Tim Ferriss podcast. I learned about Dr. Dom D'Anastigo and ketogenic diet from listening to the Tim Ferriss podcast. I've learned about accelerated learning and Josh Waitzkin. I even watched Searching for Bobby Fischer for the first time just 2 nights ago, right? And the story of Josh Waitzkin and how he was a, chess champion and all of the stuff and accelerated learning. And because I was just watching or listening to their podcast where they turned the microphone and Waitzkin was interviewing Ferriss, and which is really cool to hear, right? And I'll have to do an episode where somebody comes on and interviews me, about this, so you, instead of me being on another show and doing that. And so, yes, we are all individuals. I need another sip of coffee here. That's another Tim Ferriss reference because he sipped coffee in one of his episodes. One of the best episodes of his podcast ever, the 17 questions. If you really want to blow your mind, look up the podcast episode, Tim Ferriss 17 questions. Oh man, amazing. Will blow your mind when you start really answering these questions. Impactful, super impactful. Yes, like in Tools of Titans, 80% of the people which are top 1%ers, meditate. Got me into transcendental meditation. Every male over 45 did not eat breakfast in there, right? Those type of things. And none of them were Bob. He didn't interview Bob, which he eats breakfast, but it's super, super interesting, when you really look at all of these things, how you can use diets as tools at different portions of your life, right? And different needs at different times, right? And so you can use intermittent fasting, right? At different times in your life. Like I had a stomach bug the other day. I did not eat for over 24 hours because whatever I put in was coming right out, right? Didn't eat for 24 hours. And then the meal I had was, think about this, ketogenic guy having rice, right? I had rice with 2 shrimp, an egg scrambled in it with some soy sauce, right? That's what I don't even think I even had the soy sauce. I think it was just like that. Maybe a little bit of salt in there. But I used all that as a tool, right? So when you start understanding how all these mechanisms and systems work in the body and how they're all connected, you can use these things as tools. So the next day I woke up feeling absolutely amazing after having rice. I didn't have a metabolically flexible and I burned carbs and I felt no different than when I'm in ketosis. I actually felt better. And I'm thinking to myself, that rice made me feel good. Maybe I need to have more rice. I don't know. And so maybe that becomes part of when I cycle out of keto, right? Instead of having sweet potato, maybe I do rice, right? And so I'm going to start playing with that. Maybe I have rice and sweet potato mixed together like they have in Okinawa, Japan, right? Maybe I start playing with that and figuring out more of those type of things. And so it's always evolving. It's always changing because right now your body's different than it was at the beginning of this show 56 minutes ago. My body's different. There are cells that have died. There are cells that have been regenerated or are in the process of being regenerated. All of those things are happening. So again, back to diet, just agree on these things, right? That we need to, and I'll read these again. Eat clean food to lower toxins, non-GMO, organic, wild caught, pasture raised, humanely raised, no antibiotics, no hormones, no steroids, and the like. also eat foods as close to their natural state as possible. Now, if you find that, vegan works for you, then go for it, right? But don't poo-poo on the person who's carnivore and that works for them, who's doing some sort of elimination diet on a short-term carnivore diet to find out they can add foods back one at a time and find what their food sensitivity is, right? Just because you believe that, as long as they're doing what's right for the planet and right for them and right for their family and trying to find what works for them, respect that. I think that's what our country was built on, right? I quote Voltaire, French philosopher, that, and I think this was just an author summing up his views. I don't know. He was credited to this when I was in school. I remember this from high school, and it said, "I may not agree with what you say, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it." Right. So I may not agree with your diet, your exercise, your sleep patterns, but it's your right to do whatever you want to do. Right. Who am I to say that veganism is wrong for you, or carnivore is wrong for you, or keto is wrong for you, or paleo is wrong for you? Right. Who am I to say that? I'm here to say you need information about it. This is where we can get information. I can be a source of information. John Jensen can be a source of information. All these, Dave Asprey, Tim Ferriss, the list goes on and on and on. Ben Greenfield, I just interviewed Sean Wells, his Energy Formula book that you can buy for 99 cents at energyformula.com that will explain very similar things, right? There's a new book came out by Dr. Mark Hyman called The Pegan Diet. It's a mix between the paleo and the vegan diet, right? Because they agree on the same thing. And in a lot of ways, that book kind of inspires what this show is even about today, right? So understand is that, my view on the world and my view on diet and what works for me has no impact on your diet or your exercise program or your sleep patterns, right? Find what works for you. You're in charge. You're your own main primary health and wellness advocate for you. Your doctor's not going to do this for you. You're going to do it for you. That's the way it's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. It's what I do. It's what other people are doing, taking control of their own health, being their whole advocate, putting together their own system, their own art, their own Bruce Lee mixed martial art, right? Putting the pieces together. Absorb what is useful. This is Bruce Lee right here. Absorb what is useful. I mean, absorb everything. Keep what is useful. Discard what is not, and make it uniquely your own. I'll repeat this so I get it right this time. Absorb everything. Keep what is useful. Discard what is not, and then make it uniquely your own, and you will be your best self. Thanks for watching the show today. I hope this plants seeds in you and thoughts and spurs conversations and thinking and testing and experimenting like no tomorrow, like Tim Ferriss inspired John Jensen and me. My name is Scott Stanfield. I'm the Modern Longevitarian. It's time to roll the credits. I want to say thanks for watching. Cheers, and be brave. Let's roll the credits.